I'm with Tom Ward, and Tom is a veteran of 30 years in the sports business, a number of different franchises. He's been at the forefront of 3 different expansion franchises and has a great deal of experience in the sports industry. And Tom, you're coming off a recent project. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've sort of gotten into the expansion mode, if you will, and I spent the last 5 months in Las Vegas helping them get the NHL expansion franchise awarded to the city of Las Vegas, the first professional franchise in Nevada. And now that that project has come to completion, the team has been awarded. I'm moving on to the next projects. I've got a couple consulting projects similar to that in pro sports. But after that, then I have to make a decision whether I want to stay in pro sports, stay in consulting, go into college, or take the sales and marketing skills that I've developed over the last 30 years and apply them to maybe the non-sports industry. So right now I'm finishing up 2 other projects and will be a free agent soon, and I have to decide what direction to go in and what opportunities and options present themselves that make the most sense for me personally and professionally.
You have the unique, you've had the unique opportunity of being a part of 3 different expansion franchises in 3 different sports. Tell us about those challenges and the obstacles that one has to overcome in your position.
Well, I have been involved in 3. The original Charlotte Hornets back in 1988. The Bobcats, which took place after the Hornets left for New Orleans as a second iteration of NBA to Charlotte, but also the Nashville Predators in Nashville, Tennessee. And I think all of them are unique, all of them are different, but the Nashville situation was probably the most unique in that the NHL had awarded 4 expansion franchises, conditional franchises, meaning that they had to meet the criteria of the NHL before they could be a full-fledged member. And the teams had to sell 12,000 season tickets. They had to sell 75% of their suites and premium seating, sign, seal, and deliver all their TV, radio, broadcast agreements. And we were supposed to come in with Atlanta in 99. That would have given us a 1.5 years to ramp up. Minnesota and Columbus were coming in after us, 2000, 2001, which would have given them 2.5 years. We actually came in a year earlier in 98, which only gave us 6 months to ramp up and accomplish all the criteria that the other conditional franchises had. So we had a 6-month campaign to try to accomplish these tasks in order to beat the NFL, which was coming from Houston to Tennessee to play at the exact same time. So the state of Tennessee and the city of Nashville was going from 0 to 2 pro teams overnight. And it was an exhaustive, almost Herculean task. And I'll never forget, I'd been there 3 or 4 weeks. We had no name, no logo, no players, no nothing. And I'm watching TV late at night, and Dennis Miller was being interviewed on the David Letterman show. You probably know Dennis Miller from his sports casting days. And I'll never forget, he goes, David, did you hear that Nashville just got an NHL franchise? And David said, no, you're kidding me. An NHL franchise in the middle of the Deep South? And this wasn't the punchline, but he went on to say, the only thing they know about ice is they put it in their sweet iced tea. But the punchline was Dennis Miller said, yeah, that'll be the only arena in the country where the fans have less teeth than the players. And I'm like, oh my God, we're getting humiliated on national TV. We haven't drafted a player. We have no name, no logo. But the interesting thing is we took that negative, turned it into a positive, went to the country music community, Garth Brooks, Martina McBride, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, Vince Gill, so on, and said, we all be the face of the franchise. So they all agreed to help us because they wanted to get the first professional franchise into Nashville. And we said, there's one caveat. And they said, what's that? Well, we said, you have to black out your 2 front teeth like a hockey player, and we're putting it on billboards, on TV, and newspaper, and they all did it, and it went crazy because the best and brightest stars of Nashville were behind us, and that perpetuated it. And we finally were about just under 1,000 seats short, hitting the deadline on March 31st, 1998, and another couple came to us and said, what can we do to help you? And because we want to get to the finish line, because the NHL was going to make an example of us. If we didn't make it, we were gone, because they had 3 others behind us that had to accomplish the same criteria. So Tim McGraw and Faith Hill came to our rescue, and we did a benefit concert for ourselves in the Ryman Auditorium. It was called not the Honky Tonk Jam, but the Hockey Tonk Jam. And the Ryman is the original birthplace of country music. It's a small church. There's about, well, not small, but about 1,500 folks. We invited the top businessmen and women into this church, and we had a benefit concert for ourselves. And then at the end of their performance, we literally passed around the collection plate to take season ticket deposits. And the rest is history.
How about baseball and basketball? Any reminiscences of the success you had in starting either one of those franchises?
Well, I would say, the NBA Hornets comes out to mind. That was my first expansion franchise, and it's near and dear to my heart, having spent literally 14 years with the Hornets, 10 in Charlotte, and then another 4 in New Orleans. And I'll never forget, when I came down there, I had worked for the Washington Bullets. And the NBA referred me to go down to Charlotte, and I'm like, I'd never been to Charlotte. And this is Mayberry, and it isn't now. And I'll never forget seeing one of the papers, the Sacramento Bee, said the only franchise Charlotte will get is one with golden arches, meaning a McDonald's franchise. And that was motivation for us. Yeah. And then, we were like the last team of all the potential expansion franchises that was actually going to get awarded, little old Charlotte. And then we went on and for 10 years sold out, led the NBA in attendance, 8 out of 10 years, 24,000 fans. So that to me, I took a lot of satisfaction out of that, because all the pundits and critics said it'll never happen in Charlotte. And then we went on and really redefined, how the NBA actually operates from a game presentation and a fan perspective, with Grandmama and Alonzo Mourning and Muggsy Bogues. It was like the Rolling Stones on the road. So that was a great time for me.
Well, along with all the highs, there's got to be some obstacles you've had to overcome in terms of sports marketing. Can you share some of those with us?
I think the one that comes to my mind the most is probably in New Orleans. When I relocated down to New Orleans, this was post-Katrina, after the hurricane. And the whole city was rebuilding itself. So basketball was not the highest priority on the agenda. They were rebuilding lives and families and homes and businesses. And that was at a time when it started to go downhill for us. The NBA had to come in for the first time in the history of the league and actually buy the team back from the original owner, because we were on the verge of bankruptcy. So the NBA owned us, and the last 2 years I was there, the last year I was there, they put some conditions on us that if we don't reach the benchmark of 10,000 season tickets or $20 million in sponsorship revenue, they were going to move the team to Seattle or Kansas City or somewhere. So we were really under the gun to try to save that franchise for that city at a time when it would have been a fatal blow to them, because of what they'd already experienced with Katrina and rebuilding their lives, and to lose such a visible asset and a jewel to the community. So we had to go about, we were at 6,400 or 6,500 season tickets, so we had to sell another 3,500. We're at about 14.5 million in revenue in the smallest, poorest market with one Fortune 500 company. And so my responsibility really was, how do we get the corporate revenue from 14.5 to 20 million, a huge jump. So we created, on the season ticket side and on the sponsorship side, we committed 100 events in 100 days. And these are sales events. These were in everything from people's homes to businesses to special event centers. These were sales events. And we finally got to the point where we got the 10,000 season tickets, and it was my responsibility. In addition to that, I was just part of the season ticket drive, but the corporate partnerships were my responsibility. And so we came up with what we call a cause marketing platform, because companies weren't just going to invest in the team. They had to invest in themselves, the community, and the team. And so we came up with 3 multi-million-dollar platforms, one in education, one in energy efficiency and environmental sustainability, and the other one was in youth health. And so we went to Chevron, who had millions of dollars in a fund to help education, and they said, look, if you can come up with an education platform for the lower Ninth Ward, which had just been destroyed by Hurricane Katrina. The kids lost all their schools. They were going to school in trailers. They said, here's our problem. We have low attendance. Our GPAs are well below the rest of the state, and suspensions and expulsions are off the charts. If you can address those 3 problems, then we will do a sponsorship with you, but also a community partnership. And so we created the MVP program, the most valuable pupil. Any child that had no absences, no suspensions or expulsions, and increased their GPA by at least a .05, we had an event out at out at the Hornets Arena. And I'll never forget, it was on Martin Luther King Day. We played the Spurs. We had 4,000 middle school kids that had perfect attendance, no expulsions, suspensions, increased their GPA. And we basically turned the New Orleans Arena into the largest classroom in Louisiana for one day. We had Chris Paul at that time. So if Chris Paul shot 7 for 10, what's his shooting percentage? And they had to take their extra credit.
Wow.
And then we did a similar thing on the physical fitness front, because in the South, childhood obesity is a big issue. And so we created a B-Fit program similar to the President's Physical Fitness Program, had it in 30 different schools across 10 parishes. And then we did a similar thing with Entergy, the only Fortune 500 company in the community. And we created an energy efficiency green platform for them called Planet Rebound to address all their goals. And that helped get us almost to the finish line. This was a lockout season, if you remember, Fran. So we got just under 20 million, 19 and a half. But the NBA gave us a pass because it was a strike-shortened season, so we couldn't get there anyway. So that was a success story, I think, and an obstacle and a challenge that we had a huge undertaking. We came up with a creative solution that was a win-win all the way around.
30 years in the sports industry, 3 kids, family man. What are some life maxims you live by, philosophy of life? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Well, I'll tell you, my dad, who's a decorated war veteran, Silver Star recipient, he's actually got a boat the Coast Guard is going to name in his name this October back in New Orleans, which is exciting for me. He really instilled values in me, especially a work ethic. And that's something that drives me to this day is my work ethic, giving 110%. Make sure whatever I do I'm committed to. I've got the conviction towards, do it with a sense of purpose and pride, and stay true to yourself. He always told me, and he was a workhorse, and he was a disciplinarian, that you got to continue to challenge yourself, set goals, and sometimes you have to reset those goals as circumstances change. But he goes, don't ever forget, there's a lot of folks that have lifted you up in life, and you got to play it forward. You got to pay it back, and make sure you never forget to give back, because when you give, you receive. And those are the things that have been instilled in me that I try to practice throughout my career, my personal and professional life, and I think it's been instilled in my kids. I've got 2 kids. One is a nurse going to MBA school, going to her master's, in nursing, and my son is now in med school. So they're overachievers. They're going to achieve a heck of a lot more than I am in life, but to me that's the best compliment that they can pay.
Really appreciate you being with us, Tom. Thanks so much.
Fran. Thanks.
Yep.